G'day, everybody. Welcome to the Players Podcast, episode number 4. I'm Az, and this is Bop. Guess we'll just get straight into it. Episode number, nothing special today. Straight into our sports news around the world. Start things off with Bop.
So the AFL trade period's just officially started the other day. Only 3 moves so far, with Mabior Chol going to the Gold Coast, Jay Kelly going to Essendon, and George Stewart going to Carlton. Do you want to take the cricket?
Would love to take the cricket. All right, so in the women's cricket, Australia versus India, the test was drawn with rain delays being a contributing factor, being played up in the Gold Coast, which means the score right now, when it comes to the series points and stuff, given it's the first multi-format series, Australia is winning 6-4.
I'll just quickly add one more thing onto the cricket.
Oh, yeah.
In the IPL, the Indian Premier League for the cricket, Glenn Maxwell has scored a 50 in each of his last 3 games, which he's played.
Don't tell me you're on cricket. You're on cricket.com.au right now, aren't you?
No, I just keep up to date with it. He's and he's actually got best on ground in all 3 of those games, which is he's getting good form coming up to the Cricket World Cup starting on the 17th of October.
Looking forward to it.
NRL, the grand final just happened. The Penrith Panthers beat the Sydney Rabbitohs 14-12 in a very, very tight encounter to win the premiership.
All right, in our beloved golf little pocket here, in the Euro Tour, Danny Willett won the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship at 18 under, and in the PGA Tour, Sam Burns won the Sanderson Farms Champs at 22 under. There's your ball fest for the week.
We've had some people asking for some stuff about the NFL. So not that we have much knowledge, but 4 rounds into the NFL standings, we've got in the American Football Championship East, the Bills are on top. In the West, Raiders are on top. In the North, the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns are all on top. And in the South, the Titans are on top. Then going over to the National Football Conference. In the East, Cowboys are on top. The West, Cardinals are on top. In the North, the Packers are on top. And then in the South, we've got the Buccaneers and the Panthers are on top.
Get around the Buccaneers, mate. Gotta love Jack. Gotta love Jack Brady. Best punter in the league, I tell you what.
Oh yeah, he's so good.
Oh, mate. Sends the ball like 20 yards. All right. So moving on now, I think Bop and I have teed up a bit of a summary for each team in the AFL. So we'll just try and make this as quick as possible. Yeah. Bop, would you like to kick us off with the Crows?
With Adelaide. So we're just going to do a quick letter grade, what we've given them, and also just like maybe a quick little overview thing. So for Adelaide, we gave them a D, just not a very good year. I mean, they did okay. They probably did a little bit better than expected, but still not that great.
They found a couple good young players. They're pick number 2, I believe it is, Riley Philthorpe. He made his debut to the AFL, and he's proving to be some future talent for the Crows, which is promising.
It's true. Moving on to Brisbane, we gave them a B because they did well, but then straight sets loss in the finals really ruined their year because they had a pretty good chance of going far. But Carlton, what have we given them?
We've given them a D+ because Sam Walsh is a star, but the rest of the team is so bad, and they had to sack Teague. They didn't have to sack Teague, but they sacked Teague. So.
Well, looking at it though, next year I feel like Carlton might make finals.
Yeah,
they're just.
Voss will be good. Hopefully,
Voss, new coach, good, lots of players coming across. If they can find some form, they'll be good. Mm-hmm. Collingwood, bit of a below A situation here.
Straight up failing.
The coach succession plan thing. Now they've got a VFL coach as their coach, so
a nobody.
See how he goes. But they are signing Nick Dacos.
That was big
so
news.
that will be big for them
Collingwood.
he's a Jet. Let's talk about your beloved club.
Oh, up the Bombers, mate. We get around the Bombers, but we've given the Bombers a B+ this year. Decent season. They made finals. Few young players developed. Ben Rutten's got off to a good start, but Bombers just too inconsistent, and they lost a lot of easily winnable games.
Yeah.
Bob Freo,
C+ because they actually were in with a chance to make finals towards the end of the year, and they've got some like good young players like Sean Darcy, Andrew Brayshaw, Sarong, but they just have a very inconsistent team lineup. They just got so many different people playing every week. It's just it's hard for them to contend. I think.
And also Chera wanting to move out back to Victoria to play with Carlton is not good for their list. Given that he's definitely an up-and-coming midfielder that will slot right into the way that Fremantle play.
That's true. Geelong.
With Geelong, we've given them a B+. Finished top 4 as expected, but then again, when don't they finish top 4? But I think they just don't have any youth. They're a very old side. Like half of them about to book their stay at the retirement home. So
and they're all just flogs.
Oh, well, that's according to you, Bob. But
it's just like they'll have the next 2-3 years max, and then they're just gonna have a major rebuild. They'll be down very low.
That's how most AFL clubs work, Bob. But good on you.
No, because most clubs actually bring some youth in, just they've got zero.
Good on
Gold Coast.
All right. Below E, because I mean it's good because they continue to rebuild and get a few young guns, but I mean they're finding out their number 1 draft pick, Matt Rowell, is pretty injury prone, and they were expected to be pushing for finals, being in that sort of middle range, just out of the 8, but not this year. So Stewie Dew may also need a bit of a boot. We'll just see though. Let's hope everything works out for him.
Yeah. GWS. They got a B. They got a B. Because they did make finals. They actually won a finals. That's pretty good. But like Stephen Cornelio is their captain. He can barely get a game. Like they really need to get a new leadership group, I think. And like Toby Green's a Jet, but he just needs to start behaving because they miss him a lot when he's not playing.
They do. It was even against who did they verse? They didn't verse Brisbane. They versed Geelong, right? Yeah, they versed Geelong, and they really would have needed Green if they wanted to get over the line, which obviously they didn't. But I guess enough with GWS. On to Hawthorn now. They had a good second half of the year, not so strong in the first half, but I guess they've shown that they can play and they might look good for the next couple of years, but we'll just have to see how they build. But of course, losing Alistair Clarkson there, could you say Hawthorn's greatest ever coach? Or he's up there?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to tell. We've only lived through this era of footy, but Alistair Clarkson has left, so they just need to find a new coach and try get back to the stage.
Sam Mitchell's their new coach.
Head coach?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Well, hopefully Sam Mitchell can get him over the line next year and in following years.
Yeah.
All right.
On to the beloved D's. Oh. Well, is there anything bad about them? Like, it's an A+ for the year. It's an A+ year.
Yeah. But I mean, their kicking efficiency was pretty bad. That's the one thing I can say about it. Well, I could hit more kicks than they could, but otherwise they had a pretty good year.
Don't talk smack until you actually go play AFL, mate. Your left foot is shocking.
Give me strength.
So Melbourne finished top 4 for the first time finished top of the ladder for the first time in 57 years. Found lots of good young players who just really cemented their spot in the team and had 5 All-Australian players. And of course, they won the grand final. So, I mean, you can't really get a much better year than that, I don't think.
Yeah, well, that's an A+ for sure. Now on to a bit more disappointing North Melbourne. I'm giving them below E, where there's nothing really good to say about them other than their list is kind of starting to form. Jaden Stephenson was all right, starting to show that he was a good picker, but otherwise it's just there's no light at the end of the tunnel for North. I don't think right now.
So I reckon James Shark will be yelling at his computer right now listening to this. But
yes, well, sorry,
quick
James.
shout out.
Not sorry. Port Adelaide, Bob, would you like to?
Gave them a B+ because they actually were because normally they've only really been good playing at Adelaide Oval, but they had a 6-2 record away from home in the first half of the year, I think it was.
Top 4
so they
finish
actually
too.
Quite well. Ollie Wines had a breakout season, winning the Brownlow, so it's good he's found some form. But again, they were just inconsistent throughout the year. Then they had a few injuries as well, and disappointingly lost in the prelim when they probably could have made the grand final, I reckon.
Yeah. Now off to the Tigers. Oh, Tigerland, get around it. Didn't make the finals this year. Premiership Premiership hangover. Get around it. But I mean, it's good to see that they have a little bit of youth coming through. So it's not all negative, but
it's true.
Yeah, it's a D rating for the Tigers.
They just underperformed.
Of course, yeah.
But they were very injury prone this year, to be fair. But they did underperform.
Every team has to have their share of injuries, though. It's
St Kilda.
Yeah, St Kilda. What if we give them Bop?
D+, which is actually a little harsh looking at it now.
Yeah, it is very harsh. But
I reckon we give them a C or a C+.
Or I reckon we can upgrade them to a C.
The fact that they played finals last year and then missed out on this year, I think that's why we gave them the low rating. But I mean, Jack Steele, like a gun, had another solid year.
Yeah. And they're starting to look okay at times. Like, of course, they've had their games where they lose by 100 points, but
everyone has those.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not the Bombers. Oh, actually,
not the D's. Biggest loss was 20
you lose
points,
to Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. So
okay,
all right.
We
Sydney
won the flag.
Fair, touche. Sydney, we gave them the B. They made finals. They have loads of young talent coming through. Buddy still looks like a key forward option. Doesn't look like he's going to stop anytime soon. But they should have at least gone through to the second week of finals. And it's even worse that they lost to the crosstown rivals in that first game. So I reckon a B is a fair score for them.
Fair enough. Yeah, they were a bit of a smoky going into the finals to go pretty deep in, but they just lost in the first week.
Yeah.
West Coast, E+.
Yeah. They looked good at the start of the year.
Yeah, and then they should have pushed for top 4 this year, to be fair. But was way too inconsistent. Like their bottom 6 players just really struggled.
Oh yeah.
They couldn't find that's what the good teams, even their bottom 6 players still can hold their spot, where the West Coast they just really struggled.
Yeah, exactly. No depth. So E+ is the grade we'll give
E+.
them. It is a fail, but it's not a negative E, below E.
No.
So yeah.
The
Now off
Doggies,
to Doggies, the other grand final
contenders
side.
team. Yeah.
Yeah. We gave them an A because it's an effort to make it to the grand final, especially coming from 5th. So, they've got a solid midfield group led by the Bont with McRae, Hunter, Treloar, Dunkley, Smith. It's going well for them, but I think they just need some more key defenders as they struggle to contain the other team's tall forwards. But I guess they also had a pretty bad end to the season. Could have secured a top 4.
I think they had 3 losses in a row in the last 3 games of the year, which made them drop from 2nd to 5th. So
it's not good. But
it was an A-rated season.
Well, I think that wraps it up, Bob. We
That wraps that up.
Yeah, wraps that up. Not this.
Still got a
All right.
little bit more to go.
Just a little bit more to talk about, but
Now we've got a topic that you want to discuss.
I would love to discuss. I've recently been reading, believe it or not, I read that that Melbourne is now up for debate being the sports capital of the world. Like now up for debate, but not being the sports capital of the world. And reading further into this, London and New York seem to be the two biggest sort of contenders in this little fight, we'll call it, in this little dispute. But
Yeah.
I think we should just discuss this, Bob. We should just put an end to all this madness. So,
Well, we've got every sporting thing that Melbourne, London, and New York host, and looking at it now, it's pretty clear. That Melbourne is the most.
Well,
so we just go through all the stuff that Melbourne hosts.
Well, let's go through New York and London first, and then we'll let Melbourne overwhelm everything else. So with New York, they have the New York Marathon. They have the US Open, which is the tennis. It's one of the 4 Grand Slams. Then they have a few PGA golf events, which is, I mean, that's only really American focused.
Who cares?
Pretty much. Then we have NBA games, NFL games, MLB games, NHL games, and MLS games. So that's basketball, gridiron, baseball, ice hockey, and soccer. So I mean, I guess
they can't
American focused.
They can't like guarantee like a big game there either, because it's just home and away games, or if the team makes the finals, they play a final there. So none of those real big like events.
The grand finals and stuff aren't played in a certain city every year, or isn't played at the like home teams home. It's it's an odd way to do it, but it seems to work. But one more thing about New York, they had the Winter Olympics in 1980. Sorry, Bob, to cut you off there. What were you going to say, mate?
No, that's what I was going to say. And they also had the Winter Olympics in 1980. So
so I mean the worse Olympics, the less common Olympics. But
London, that'll cause some a bit of discussion outside the podcast. I reckon, that call.
Who likes the Winter Olympics more than the Summer Olympics?
I agree. I'd rather the Summer Olympics than the Winter Olympics, and they're probably bigger. But there would be people who do rather the winter than the summer, like skiers and snowboarders. I've got some words for you then.
All right, London, Bob. Would you like to run us through?
So they hold the Wimbledon tennis event, which is another one of the major Grand Slams. They hold the Six Nations Rugby, the London Marathon, the London Triathlon. They also host one of the NFL gridiron home and away games every year. They hold lots of the English Premier League games because it's kind of based out of London. I
think there's six teams in the EPL are from London, and 6 championship teams, which is like Div 2, are also from London. So
there's also some T20 Blast cricket games there, which is like the English cricket competition kind of, and but they've held the Olympics 3 times: 1908, 1948, and 2012, and also the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, the only city to hold it 3 times. I think Paris.
So that's a pretty.
Paris in 2024 will join them there, but otherwise, as of right now,
that's pretty big though. 3 Olympics. It
is. It's massive, and especially one of the more recent ones too. That
So now, are we gonna talk about?
Melbourne.
Melbourne. I love Melbourne.
We love Melbourne. All right. So we, Bop and I, both truly believe that Melbourne is the greatest city in the world when it comes to sports.
100%.
100%. We're also the most locked down city in the world, but that doesn't stop our Melbourne spirit.
Yeah. We win some, we lose some, but
exactly, mate. Exactly. But some of the sporting events that Melbourne holds, but not limited to, is the Australian Open, which is the first Grand Slam of the season for tennis. The Australian Grand Prix, which is generally the opening Grand Prix of the Formula One season, but I think that's bound to change given COVID, and Bahrain's had that role for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
We host the AFL Grand Final, other than COVID years. Super Rugby games, which is like the Super Rugby League.
No.
Which is rugby union. Rugby union.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and that's a pretty small league, 5 teams, but still, it's a league. We have the Bells Beach Surfing Pro Competition, however you want to say it. That's just outside of Melbourne, but give or take, it's not like Melbourne have great surf beaches at St Kilda or whatever, not in the Bay. Then we have the Boxing Day Test, which how many people do you reckon visit the Boxing Day test? Would there be 400,000 attendance or a bit less?
Probably somewhere between 350 and 400,000. Some people would go multiple days, but that'd be how many tickets are going to sold. But
exactly.
First day Boxing Test against England,
100,000.
Boxing Day Test against England, you can get at least 95,000 in there.
Yeah, it's cooked. It's and
this year,
this year
one of the oh yeah, you go.
Oh, Bob, cheers, mate. Cheers. So it's also this year's against England for the Ashes. So this will be absolutely massive. Given the last time there was the Ashes, this was 2019 mid-year, and last time he was in Australia, it was like 2017-18 summer, I believe it was.
Other than the fact that there probably won't be big crowds because Dan Andrews, but
I mean, you can't blame it on him. I mean, I hate getting controversial about this, but I mean, it's lockdowns aren't all necessarily that bad.
Gladys,
I mean, she's not even premier anymore. But
one of the big reasons that Melbourne is the sporting capital, though, is the MCG.
Oh, absolutely.
Which hosts the Boxing Day Test, the AFL Grand Final.
Exactly. It hosts. It hosts AFL games. It hosts some soccer exhibition games, which aren't too often, and some Big Bash
games.
But Melbourne also holds the Melbourne Cup, which is horse racing, obviously, at Flemington Racecourse. So that's I would say one of the top 3 or 4 biggest races of the year. Then we also hold NRL games, A-League games, and NBL games. So rugby league, soccer, and basketball games in Melbourne. So with also the Olympics and Commonwealth Games in 1956 and 2006. So we've had our fair share of sports events, and I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, it is definitely.
It's pretty clear.
We're the best.
We are superior to every other city in the world.
But the thing that has been causing a bit of chatter in the community has been about our all the quarantining means we haven't been able to actually hold lots of sporting events here.
Yeah, and international fans can't come and watch and spectate live in person, which I know this happened with the tennis last year. It was mostly just an Australian fan base, which is still pretty large, but it's not. You don't get your or your Americans or your British or whatever following their favorite players.
But there's still been like in the Australian Grand Prix, the last 2 years has been cancelled because of COVID.
Yeah,
or maybe it was 1 year.
No, it was 2 years actually.
2, yeah.
It was like
I think they came over, but then they cancelled.
Everybody was over. Everybody was about to watch the not the qualifying, but one of the first practice sessions. They called it off just hours before, I think. So,
and then the tennis, I wouldn't be surprised if lots of big players won't come and play because they won't want to quarantine for 2 weeks before, because like every other tournament they've played in, they might be in a bubble, but they don't have to quarantine before going into that bubble.
Exactly.
And also with the Boxing Day Test. Boxing Day Test has been chatted that the English players, some of them won't want to come over because they have to do 2 weeks of quarantine before going into a bubble.
I find that kind of ridiculous, how you don't want to quarantine. Well, I guess if you're one of the big players who've played like a lot of cricket, for instance, for England, to miss one tour to stay home with your family, but
the issue with that is they'll be sending over a fringe second-rate team to play against our.
Course, exactly. It takes away
team.
from the excitement of it. It's the Ashes becomes less like the two biggest teams in the in the cricketing world. Given that was I think the first ever Test match was between Australia and England or whatever, possibly.
Yeah.
So it was like
something like
that. So it just takes away from the real experience of playing in the Ashes. It's I don't know. Players should just be able to cop it on the chin, suck it up, do your 2 weeks in quarantine. I'm sure if you're getting shipped out to Australia to play a few games of cricket, I'm sure they can afford to get you in a nice enough room where you can have some equipment that will help you keep fit or something.
Yeah, and it's not going to last for much longer either. So
exactly.
You've done it for almost 2 years. Do it for the next few months, and
exactly. And it's not like Ashes is. It's not like the Ashes is going to be held in Australia that often anyway. So if you're somebody like I'll say Root, I don't know how old Root is, but I'm expecting that he's probably somewhere at the end of his prime. If he
he's somewhere in late 20s. I think late 20s to 30.
Yeah. So like if he doesn't choose to come this year, and then something happens with him next time, that's his Ashes away gone. So
he's 30. He's 30. And he's turning 31 in 2 months. So
so he'll be like 37, 38 in 2 Ashes times, which who's going to want a 38-year-old playing?
No. It'll be like, isn't it every 2.5, 5? He'll be like 35, I reckon, 30. But that's still probably going to be too old.
Yeah.
It's too old.
Yeah, exactly. So, as I said, players just cop it on the chin, suck it up, and then play your sport 2 weeks later. It's not that hard. It's a minor inconvenience for everybody else who's doing 2 weeks quarantine. It's just
Now,
yes, Bob,
have you got a fun fact for us this week?
I do. I've come up with a really good one. It's a golf ball has 336 dimples on it on average.
Wowzers.
I know.
Jeez, that's big.
I counted all my golf balls.
On?
Pardon?
What website did you find that one on?
What I did, mate, I got all the golf balls out of the bag and I counted every single little dimple on all of them. And then I divided it by how many golf balls were there. And then that's how I got my average. So,
wowzers.
I know. Quick maths.
You must be very, very bored.
Oh, man, I was extremely bored. But what I do for this podcast, mate, what I do.
We love it.
We love it. Indeed.
All right. Well, I reckon that wraps us up. What do you think?
I think we've pretty much talked about everything we need to talk about.
Should we announce what's happening for our podcast next week? As it's a pretty big podcast.
Well, I think you've got a better idea of what's happening, Bob. I think you're still trying to surprise me a little bit. So why don't you surprise me? Yes.
Next week, we're going to be doing the T20 Cricket World Cup preview podcast with 2 special guests. We've got 2 special guests.
Do we keep their identity secret, or do we make it as a surprise?
What do you reckon?
Well, I don't know.
We've already told them there's 2, so maybe we do a we'll do an Instagram post with a question mark on it, and we'll get people to guess. You put your guesses in, and then we'll announce who the guests are later in the week.
Yes.
What do you reckon?
I think that's a plan.
So it's going to be
a dynamic duo. That's a final hint.
That's the hint. It's going to be a big episode. If you're still listening, probably one of the 2 or 3 people who are now, make sure you tune in for next week.
All right.
And find us on Instagram at the Real Players Podcast. Is that correct?
Yep, it is. Slide into our DMs there, or email us at the Real Players Podcast at gmail.com.
On Spotify at the Players Podcast and YouTube at the Players Podcast. Give us a subscribe, like, follow, comment.
Yes. Make sure to tune into Bop and Az's quiz. There'll be a couple of those coming out this week. Maybe 1, maybe 2. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think we've got some pretty interesting stuff to explore on the Sporkles. Possibly a tier list. We'll see.
Easy. We'll have to wait and see. Well,
Exactly.
it's been a good one, Az.
Yeah, thanks, Bop, mate. It's been great. Looking forward to episode 5. I guess that's it from here. Cheers, mate.
See you, mate.